Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to How to Grow Your Business on LinkedIn. My name is Colin Mahan. I'm a director of programs at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit that's building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. As you'll see in the chat in a moment, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So check out those links and resources in the chat. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started today. Firstly, let us know where you're dialing in from in the chat. We'd love to see where you're coming in from. Secondly, we're going to open up for live Q&A near the end of the event, so please submit those questions for us in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We'll try our best to get to them all. Now, none of what we do here at the center could be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including Nasdaq, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, Microsoft, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We're humbled by their contributions, and we hope you are too. Now, before we get started, I'm going to launch a quick poll to step back and take a temperature gauge on how all of us are doing today. We use this information to guide the wellness programs that we provide for our entrepreneurs. So let us know. Let's see where we've got Washington State, Georgia. All right, welcome everybody. New York City, Pittsburgh, welcome. We've got San Francisco, Bellingham, Washington, Tucson, Arizona, Detroit, Michigan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. More Atlanta, Georgia, Canary Islands, Philippines. Welcome. Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit. All right, we got a great mix. Columbus. Love this. And thank you for participating in that poll. Ann Arbor, let's go. All righty, everyone. Well, I'm going to end this poll and share those results on how everyone's feeling today. It looks like optimism is in the lead, which is great news, but totally understand that there's a little bit of survival mode and anxiety out there. So hopefully our presentation today on LinkedIn will help alleviate some of those sentiments. But I'm going to share that really quick, just to let you all know that you're not alone if you're in that survival and anxious category. All righty, so without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest in the chat. Tara Gooch is the CEO of Best Branding Solutions. Tara, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Colin. I really appreciate this opportunity.
I'm so excited to dive into this topic today. LinkedIn is such a new, I guess, relatively new resource for entrepreneurs, but I'm aging myself, so it's been around for a while. Let's see. Let's jump right in. Tara, like many entrepreneurs in our community today, your journey is unique and has had many twists and turns along the way. Can you talk a little bit about what led you to entrepreneurship in the first place?
Absolutely. So, well, it started in the global pandemic, right? So this would have been June of 2020. We started Best Branding Solutions. And at the time it was, more of a side gig, if you will, right? So we didn't have huge plans for expansion or anything like that because we were both working full-time jobs. So I was a corporate sales director, and it was March of this year that I decided to dive right in to full-time entrepreneurship. I have no one in my family that's an entrepreneur, no real friends that are entrepreneurs, right? So I just dived right in head first. And it started off with just me wanting more out of life, more freedom. In my corporate work environment, it was toxic. So a lot of people can relate to that, toxic management, toxic leadership. And I wanted something more. I wanted to challenge myself and be able to create something in my own way that, and do it my way, do it for me and my family, right? So that's how I got started as an entrepreneur. I think it's a similar journey to a lot of people, but I just believed in myself one day enough to take that leap and to try something new.
Yeah, and it's great that the side hustle allowed you to take the leap, right?
That's right. Exactly. Yep. So, already having that established, right, and growing the name for 2 years or so, gaining familiarity with it on LinkedIn. Then when I decided to, take the leap into full-time entrepreneurship, it wasn't a cold start. I already had a warmness to it because there was familiarity with it there. I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely important. Okay, so let's dive right into the topic for today, LinkedIn. How is LinkedIn different from other community platforms and social media? And why is it important for entrepreneurs?
Well, it's different in so many ways. So, like Facebook is your backyard barbecue, right? It's pretty laid back. People share a lot of personal things, right? When you're on LinkedIn, you can absolutely share personal things, but people go there with business in mind first. So that's one of the ways LinkedIn is totally different from other networking platforms or social media platforms. It's the world's largest business to business networking platform, right? So it's business to business. People are there with business in mind. And that's why the conversion rates are so much higher on LinkedIn versus Twitter or Facebook, etc. The conversion rates are astronomical compared to the other social media platforms. So, as an entrepreneur, one of the most important things you can do is to build that brand awareness. Like I said, just a little bit ago, how that helped leverage me. You build it on something like LinkedIn, and it really differentiates yourself over time. You know what I mean? And again, where's your target market? I'm sure your target market is on LinkedIn as opposed to Facebook. It doesn't mean don't differentiate yourself and, diversify yourself and be on multiple platforms. It just means you need to focus on this one very much if you want to grow your business.
Yeah, I love that. And so for some of our community who are just getting started on LinkedIn or don't use it often or don't update it as much as they should, like me, what are some tips for setting up your profile just to look like the other ones that are up to date out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up because honestly, that is step one. You know, all of these things can sound overwhelming. Oh gosh, I have to have amass this many connections and I have to get this much reach or else I'm nobody. Just start at the basic level, which is your profile. And I think so many people try to go A to F and don't try to go A, B, C, D, E. You've got to start at your profile because that's how people know if they want to do business with you or not, right? Where's your work history? I want to see, where you went to school, what's your education, what's your background, what's your experience? What is it about your profile that makes me want to do business with you? If I can't tell that from looking at your profile, then it's going to be on to the next, right? I'm going to find somebody else in the same industry that maybe has a clearer profile or a more outlined profile because it makes it, as a consumer, it makes a clearer decision, right? So again, it starts at your profile. We think so many times we've got to prospect, but we don't have that, profile created. That prospect is going to ignore you. So that profile is step one. You have to make sure every single part is touched, no blanks, and that it's filled out with intention. I think a lot of people get that wrong, where they'll write like it's about them. It's not about you. It's about who you serve. When you start writing your profile like that, then all of a sudden your content starts to have that same effect. And then all of a sudden you start to attract clients to you. So it's very important as an entrepreneur. Step number one, got to optimize your profile. Must be done. Yes.
That's great advice. Double clicking on that a little bit, just out of mere curiosity. Profile photos, I've seen a wide range. So any recommendations on just when you're setting it up, what kind of photo you should choose?
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you're smiling too, folks. And first off, if you have a profile picture, that's step one, definitely have one because no one will connect with you potentially if you don't have that profile picture. At least that signifies to me that you're a real person, right? So again, human nature is that we want to look at faces. It's just ingrained in us, right? So have a profile picture and it should be just you. It shouldn't be you and a bunch of friends or you at your wedding day with your wife cropped out, right? You want to make sure it's you and you want to make sure that your face takes up about 60% or so of that image. You want to see a face, you want to see someone smile, lots of eye contact. but don't dress stuffy if that's not your personality. Feel free to show your personality a little bit. There's no need to dress with a suit and tie if that's not how you normally dress. Feel free to showcase the world who you really are, but keep it clean, keep it professional, and smile with 60% or so of it taken up in that space. I think those are helpful hints.
That is a great advice. I've seen a lot of those props wedding ones. I can't hate it. I can't hate people for, hey, I look good that day.
That's true. Yeah.
So now you're a branding specialist. So let's dive into that a little bit on LinkedIn. So for those who aren't continuously active on social media in general, what are some of the easy ways to get started on just building that brand?
Yes. So you already said it, get started, right? The only way, again, there's no easy button. I wish I could tell you, anybody listening, that tomorrow you could have 30,000 connections, but it's not true. You have to just get started. So there's a lot of power to LinkedIn right now, and there's a lot of onlookers and lots of audience potentially. So keep this in mind as you're pondering, when do I get started? 1% of LinkedIn users post, period. 1%. 4% comment. 95% are onlookers. Well, that sounds like a lot of free advertising to me. So again, just you getting started, just you posting, you're automatically a part of that 1% club. You're automatically setting yourself up for success. But unless you put that message out there, no one, unfortunately, is going to know you exist. So, this is something I talk about religiously, and that's top of mind awareness with your customer. So there's a book that's recently come out. It's called The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And in his book, he talks about that. And he says, best known is going to beat best. So our whole lives, we've been taught best known is going, I'm the best athlete, I'm the best, whatever, I must, make all the sales, right? Get all the clients. But if nobody knows you exist, they can't find you. So you have to post content. And again, that every time you do, it acts as a billboard for you, for your service, to again, direct that traffic to you. So just get started. Just start posting.
I love that. And I want to get into content creation in a moment, but there was a question that just came in that I want to rewind a little bit. So one of our attendees asked, what about putting a product photo as their profile photo?
No, and think about that, folks. Like what did I say a little bit ago, right? Our human brains are hardwired for connection. I want to see eyes. I want to see that human behind that profile, because guess what? 100% of your customers are people. 100% of investors are people. 100% of partners, of employees are people. No one buys from a faceless corporation. They buy from other people. That's the power of leveraging your personal brand, is it grows that trust and likability over time. Because again, it doesn't matter if you have the absolute best product or service. If I don't know you're a real person at the other end, it doesn't build that credibility with me to the point where I want to exchange money, right? That's key, folks. I've got to know that you're a real person.
Yeah. And I remember back when in-person meetings were more common, that I would look at somebody's LinkedIn profile just to be able to figure out who I was meeting at the coffee shop. So if I just saw a product, I'd be like, okay, this doesn't help me at all.
Nope, you would go to the next, right? Even if it was the best product. That's the point. People buy from people.
Yep. Great advice. Okay. So when it comes to creating content, what approaches would you say work better than others? And this is just media question. We can get into the content creation stuff in a second, but is video performing better now? Blog posts, articles, images, all of the above?
I mean, I'm an all the above kind of person, because your audience is diversified, right? So you'll have some people that learn kinesthetically. You have others that are auditory learners, some that are visual learners, right? In order to have a really effective content strategy, you want to have a multimedia approach to your content. But as far as what's, appealing well, doing well, it's always going to be video, because video is so powerful. Think about how powerful this exchange is right here. There's no editing. This is live, right? For me on my side, this is unscripted. This is who I really am. And as somebody that is meeting me for the first time, which a lot of folks in this community are, they're seeing me as a real person. I'm not editing this, right? So video is always going to be impactful and meaningful, because you're really seeing that true person, and you're knowing, again, who you're giving your money to, who you're exchanging business with. But as far as, I mean, gosh, newsletters are great too. I think that's an underutilized resource on LinkedIn. And we can talk more specifically on that later, but, just start posting, because I know, again, video sounds overwhelming for a lot of folks, and it sounds scary, especially like a LinkedIn Live. It's not as bad as you think it is. It's, you have to have a mindset for this though. So, as an entrepreneur, one of the most important tools you have in your toolbox, regardless of what industry you're in, is your mindset. And again, you have to identify that, because if you don't, it's going to be a stumbling block that's going to prevent people from getting to know your business, which again, in turn leads to loss of, share over time. You really want to stay top of mind awareness, but video is fantastic for that. Again, it's that genuine human connection that you form.
Yeah, I love that. And you're talking about getting started, but for people who aren't comfortable creating content or haven't done it yet or often, what are some tips for some like initial content rollout strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, it doesn't have to be your own content, right? So if you're too intimidated to be part of that 1% club that posts, be part of that 4% club that comments and starts commenting on other people's posts. You'll start to get really good insights of what a valuable post is by looking at other people's comments. And then you'll start to think, well, I could make a post like that based on my experience, right? So if you're brand new, just getting started out, follow somebody that you admire, right? That you think has a really good content strategy, or just really enjoy their material that they put out. And then put your own spin on it, right? So put your own spin on it by, what are your core values? What are your experiences? What has your past been? Where did you go to school? How were you raised? Any of these different things that you could put in a post. It's just your life, right? But a good thing to share is always failure. That's a good, we hear a lot of people all the time beating their own chest and saying why they're the best at something. But really, that doesn't get the attention. What gets the attention is the stories of failure and perseverance, which all entrepreneurs have, by the way. And that's what connects you to those other people. And that's really how to get started sometimes, is either by commenting on other people's posts, by kind of mimicking someone to a certain extent and then following them and then putting your own spin on it. But just get started. That's the best piece of advice. Just every day, push yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it gets easier over time too.
It does.
So in terms of customer discovery and doing user research as an entrepreneur who's either trying to learn more from existing customers or potential new ones when developing a new product or service, how have you used LinkedIn to do this?
Absolutely. And, this is an interesting question, because I could answer it from so many different angles. But, again, I think of people are overthinking this, right? So the first thing as an entrepreneur and this is what they don't teach you in business school. The first thing is not to roll out a product or service and then, you have zero audience, zero relationships, right? That would be the worst case scenario. It's possible for you to succeed, but you're setting yourself back so much further. You have to build the community first. You start to build a community that all of a sudden they know, like, and trust you. They've seen your posts, they've seen your content, they've seen repetition of your name over time. And then you start to, have these more deeper relationships with people, right? So it starts by adding value. And, we're so focused on, because again, Any business, doesn't operate without sales. You have to have sales. But we're so focused on that pipeline, on that sale, but there's no audience. There couldn't be a customer discovery because you don't have an audience to discover. You have to create that. So first thing is optimizing your profile, developing this personal brand by posting content, by showing the world your authentic self, by showing up as a leader, as a subject matter expert. All of a sudden, these clients, these prospects, these customers start coming to you, right? And, too, a pipeline is important and you have to have a, customer base, but I keep up with my customers because they follow my content and I follow theirs. And every single time I come in contact with somebody that I would consider a high value prospect, I ring their bell on their profile. And guess what? Every time they post, I like it and I comment on it and I support it. Over time, that's what leads to relationships. Relationships lead to business. It's really that simple.
Awesome. And then some people have asked about, the tools that you may use to find the right people to target on LinkedIn. So this is, we'll get to the community piece a little bit. We'll double click on that a little bit later. But in terms of, let's say I have this ideal customer profile in mind based on my customer discovery, how do you, are there any tools that you do to find the right people on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, LinkedIn Premium's great, and there's lots and lots of paid features on LinkedIn, but it's expensive, and it's expensive for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, right? So let's just talk about the free stuff for the moment, and then I can talk about things like Sales Navigator a little bit later, because I think a lot of people go in and they get excited and they buy like Sales Navigator, and then they don't even use it. So my approach is I want you to get familiar with how to leverage it for free first, and then use something like Sales Navigator to refine and really target people and actually add a pipeline. But, first, finding the right people, you could do something called Boolean searching. So just like you could do in a computer program, you can do it on LinkedIn. So how you find the right people with a Boolean search, it's and or statements. And you could say something like CMO in quotes, and or Chief Marketing Officer, again, in quotes. Narrow it down by country. You can narrow it down by industry. And all these are free tools through filtering that you can do on LinkedIn. So the first thing to do is, Boolean search, narrow it down to your specific industry or area, and then start connecting with those folks. That would be the free approach. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is great, again, but I think a lot of people get excited, buy something like that, and then end up regretting their decision to buy it because they're actually not using it. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally does. It's super helpful. So now that you've got this customer profile you want to speak with identified and you've connected with them, what are some tips for an initial outreach strategy? Would you go start small or go far and wide?
Absolutely. So if you have somebody that is already targeted and identified, the best approach you can do is by, I will say this, the worst approach you can have, which I see it all the time, is by sending them a pitch right after you connect with them, okay? So I want to address that real quick because honestly, it happens 50 times a day for me. I can only imagine how much it happens for everybody else. So that's the last thing you want to do is connect with somebody and then immediately sales pitch them. You wouldn't propose to a girl on her first date, just like you wouldn't, pitch somebody right after you connect with them. It's very similar. So, that's what you don't do. What you do is when you find these people after you have used a basic search and filters, your initial outreach can just be, again, adding value to that person. Look at their activity. Do they post? If they do, you better ring their profile and start supporting their content. If they don't post, right? This is a good gauge for you to get inside your customer's head to see if a DM being sent to them is even going to be received. Because if they're not active on LinkedIn, sending a bunch of DMs doesn't make sense. So I always check out their activity, start adding value to their content. And you can even start tagging your customers, your prospects in your posts if it's a thought leadership type of content strategy that you have. They're going to see that, oh, this person shows up, this person's a leader, this is somebody I can learn from, which translates to this is somebody I want to do business with.
Oh, that's amazing advice. I get a bunch of those blanket blasts all the time.
Yes,
But if you do a little bit of homework, you're more likely to get my attention.
that's right.
Let's see, have you seen community evolve over time? And what are the advantages? I know you talked about having the right community, but what are those advantages to having the right community?
Absolutely. So first off, LinkedIn has evolved. It has changed. It used to be a static, just page for your resume. Everybody was buttoned up. Nobody talked to each other. It wasn't really a community feel to it. LinkedIn has evolved, and it's something I like to think of. Someone said this one time, the human influencer, the rise of the human influencer. And that's particularly important on LinkedIn. So again, we're looking for somebody that's a thought leader, right? Somebody that's a human as well. I want to see the times you failed. I want to see these things because it lets me know who you are. So LinkedIn has absolutely evolved and changed over time to now where it's a genuine community. This is, again, where you can really change your life. At any point in time, you're one connection away from a completely different life. And this Nasdaq appearance, for example, I found out about your Entrepreneur Center through a LinkedIn connection because he appeared on this same show. And if it wasn't for that, I would have never had this opportunity. So again, it's really knowing your network, supporting them, and then you never know what opportunities can evolve for you as well.
That's great. And on the thought leadership piece, we've had a question that came in that I think would be good to pause for a second. And so we have a couple of people asking about, so is there a separation from the personal one and the one for my business, and some advice around managing both of those?
Absolutely. Again, this is, I think we're overthinking it. You were born with a personal brand. You're just either going to be the one telling it, or you're going to let somebody else tell the story for you. So your personal brand and your company brand should be separate. Again, I don't follow a company, I follow a person. And it's so exciting to follow leaders of companies and really watch them evolve into visionaries on LinkedIn and the following that they get from that, right? And it really has evolved and has changed over time. But honestly, LinkedIn has just been so phenomenal. And when you show up as, like I said, as a thought leader, as a subject matter expert, and have that as a part of your content strategy, it really does. It's a total shift from where you started. Absolutely.
I love that. So you talk a lot about how brands build trust, and especially on LinkedIn, but online. So how do you go about creating trust within people on your list, in your community in general?
It's so hard on social media sometimes because, again, you can't, if I just see a thumbnail picture, nothing really signifies that that's a human being. So it could be a bot, it could be a fake profile. So, one of the things that you can do is, again, show up as your authentic self, right? Show up again as your authentic self. And, that, again, if there's one piece of takeaway, I would say that would be a good one. But yes, I hope that answered the question there.
Oh, it totally does.
Good, perfect.
So once you find effective strategies for creating significant interest around your content and trust around your brand, how can you scale that?
Yeah, so scalability, it's all about the action you put into something, right? So again, there's no easy button, but scalability, just like building a personal brand, takes time. Just like building your company took time. But it's well valued investment into the future of your organization, right? So how much time do you want to put in it? You'll get back that and then some, but you have to put in that action, right? So anything can be scalable, but you have to have a start point. And then if you're starting at 1 post a day and then go to 3 posts a day, guess what? You're scaling, right? It may not lead to a monetization immediately, but you're scaling. Now you keep that momentum going by every week, maximizing your connections. We get 200 every single week, personal. Those 200, again, could be life-changing. But if I didn't perform the action of connecting with these people, it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't scale, and neither would my business. We are intertwined. My scalability is the scalability of my business. My business can only grow as much as I'm willing to push. And I think that, is all you can say about business and scalability, really. It's dependent on the CEO. It's dependent on that entrepreneur, that owner, to really push it. And LinkedIn is a great way to do it.
That's great advice. And then we've got, so these are all great questions, team. Keep dropping them into the Q&A box. So based on what you were just talking about on frequency, we've got a couple questions here from Angela around how often, and this may be a depends moment, but how often should you post on LinkedIn? And to follow up on that, should it be strictly business and professional related?
Don't want all business and professional, do you? Right? I want to see again, some life. I want to see some life, some action. Again, people are here with business in mind, but we buy from other people. I can't say that enough, guys. So as far as consistency goes, again, do you want to follow somebody that never likes anybody else's posts or leaves comments or posts themselves? No. If you want people to follow you, if you want to gain followers and engagement, you have to put that effort out there. So again, it's dependent on how much effort you want. When I first started, and I did my first video post this year, so anybody can start at any point in time. I would say, I think it was March of this year, I had around 15,000 followers. Now I have 30. Because I scaled my content and developed a content strategy that really was, I went from 0 to 3 days a week to 5 to 7. So I didn't go from 1 to 7 because I wouldn't have an audience there. And I think that's important too. So it's situational dependent. You have to have your audience first in order for them to get the content you're trying to put out. If you don't have that first step, you could post 20 times a day, no one will see it.
Yep, that's great advice. And then another question here, and I know this is another depends, but ideal time of day to post on LinkedIn?
Depends on the day. So that's the algorithm. So every single day, there is a best time to post for that day. It's a range. So I do say this in my program that I'm launching, but one of the specific days I think is Saturday. Great time to post would be between 9 and I think 1 o'clock or so. But every single day is situational dependent on that day. But don't worry so much about that. That's not really, just try to be consistent and post at a similar time every day to, again, where people can start to count on you. My goal every morning is when people look at their phone and see LinkedIn, that they see a notification from me because I post at a very similar time every day. So they can count on that and they can count on my consistency of being there. So that's where it starts. Just start and just try to stay consistent. Don't worry about the time. That's for later.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, it's your daily dose of Tara at the same time. Every day you could look forward to it.
See?
Yep, love it. And so for those trying to enter new networks or may not have large communities, but they're trying to create connections with new buyers, employees, investors, how do you go about doing that? And how can LinkedIn contribute to them trying to get those networks expanded?
Absolutely. It's such a great question. So I have a friend in Europe. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he has talked about using LinkedIn for investment opportunities, right? And how does he do this? So people might wonder, what is his strategy? How does he do this? And this guy has been a startup investor, I would say 20 times. So when I say serial entrepreneur, I mean it. He uses video. And he utilizes his own LinkedIn platform as his stage. It's really that simple. But again, he has an audience and he very much engages with his community. I've featured him on my newsletter. I talk to him once a week. We collaborate. So he wouldn't have success with that video if he had no network to watch it. So you can absolutely use, LinkedIn as a prospecting tool. You can use it as a prospecting tool for both clients and future employees. You can also utilize it as a tool for investors and business partners, right? Also, you can have it for strategically aligned business partners. Maybe somebody that wouldn't buy from you or doesn't need your service, but you're in the same industry that you can utilize each other's networks, do collaborative posts, etc. And all of a sudden you've gained reach, increased your credibility, and now you have a referral partnership. So absolutely all of those 100% are possible on LinkedIn. And I've done all of them and it's been amazing.
It's great. So there's another question here on, we're all early users at LinkedIn at some point, even some of the early adopters of the software. You still have to set everything up. So now that the platform has evolved so much based on what you were talking about, what did you learn throughout the process that you wish you knew when you got started and built from zero?
I wish somebody would have told me 5 or so years ago, don't collect connections, make relationships. Honestly, that is such a powerful piece of advice. It sounds so great to have a vanity metrics and it makes you feel good, right? And maybe that's your goal, right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that goal, but how many of them do you actually know? How many of them have you gone to lunch with? How many of them have you had a virtual coffee meeting with? How many of them do you know at all outside of their thumbnail picture? That's what I would suggest to somebody that is brand new starting out. And again, it can happen in a very short amount of time with enough effort and consistency, but you'll amass, the right people with the correct content strategy if they know they can count on you to show up. And if you are seeking out the right people in your industry or network that is valuable for you. But absolutely, it's not about the number, it's about the relationships.
That's phenomenal advice. Everyone's saying I agree. Best advice I've ever heard. There was another one around followers versus connections. So any comment there?
Yeah, so 30K is the limit. So I'm almost at 30K connections, first degree, but you can have more followers, right? So after somebody has reached their connection limit for first degree, you can still follow that person. And then it just goes 30,001 and etc. Right? Mm-hmm. So as far as I know, there's no limit to how many connection or to how many followers you can have. But that's the beauty of it. So again, it's not about building a vanity metric. You absolutely want to have a successful network that, relates to you, does business with you, and supports you. You can still do that and have a large number by reaching out in multiple different ways. So like today, I have plenty of connections and followers that have come here today because they've seen me talk on other platforms before, right? It's enriching that audience to the point where they like, trust, and do business with you over time, but you have to add a lot of value. So that is something that is another good takeaway is you have to add a lot of value and really, show people that you know what you're talking about, but also that you want to help them. That's so key.
Yeah, definitely key. All right, well, we've got a ton of questions flooding into the Q&A box, so we'll get to those in a moment. But Tara, what's one thing you want everyone in our community to take away from our discussion today? If they were to dial into the last 2 minutes of this before Q&A, what would you want them to take away?
You are a brand. You, okay? Your brand is you. Don't overthink it. It's nothing more than that. But it's the experience that you give to people, how people perceive you, right? So just like a company, an individual is the same way. It's that experience. It's that expectation. So don't overthink it. You have a brand. The only thing you need to think about is how you're going to tell your story. So if you walk away with nothing, walk away with these two things. You are a brand. It just needs strategy. I want to hear your story because you're a human being and 100% of your customers are as well. And just get started. And that's as simple as that.
What a golden nugget to end on. All right, team. Well, we're going to jump into Q&A. So if you haven't already, drop those questions in. We're going to try to get to as many of these as possible. We have tons of time, though, so we'll do our best for a lightning round, if you will. So you talked a little bit about setting up your profile. Someone, Tasha, thanks for the question, asked for what tips do you have for completing the summary?
Summary section. Well, the summary section is great, but let's not worry about the summary section right now because I actually want to talk about the about section. So before we get to the summary section, the about section comes first. And I think a lot of people get the about section wrong, so I want to hit on that. The about section is not about you. So I don't care, again, don't beat your chest. I don't care if you're the best person, X, Y, Z. How can that help a potential client, right? So somebody that you're an entrepreneur, somebody's landing on their page, they go to your page just like they would your website to figure out how you can serve them. So your summary, your about section is client centric. Okay, so definitely you want to make sure you hit on that. Answer those questions for the client. Add value right in those sections, right? So the about section needs to be about the other person. The summary section can be something of your experience and why you are the best person for the job, right? Why your product or service is great, what problem it solves for X customer, whatever. But your about section has to be about the other person.
Yep, that's great advice. Let's see. There's another question here, and these are all great. We're going to get to as many as possible. So are there recommendations or specific tools on how to manage the LinkedIn inbox? Since the functions are correct, they come in all the time. And if you use these tools, then I'm sure your inbox will start exploding at some point.
Oh my gosh, I know. It happens to the best of us, so don't feel bad. The best thing that you can do is if somebody sends you a DM and it's important, keep it marked unread until you're able to, go circle back. You can put in-mails in the other, it's called other folder. So these are really the way to segregate your inbox. Unfortunately, it's not set up like an Outlook would be. You have your main inbox and then you have something called other. You can take some of those and forward them to yourself and email them to yourself as well. So whatever mechanism you use to organize your email, there's no right or wrong approach. What I personally do is leave it marked unread until I resolve it. If it's not important to me, I either delete it or put it in the other folder.
Love that. Yeah, I agree. I'm an inbox sorter in Outlook. So hopefully one day that LinkedIn will hear that we're talking about they need more than just 2 folders. There's a question here that's interesting. Thanks, Angela. How do you set up an auto invite to subscribe to your newsletter when somebody follows you?
Ooh, that's interesting. So you can have an out message on your direct messages if that's your preference, right? So if you want to have people subscribe to your newsletter or blog or something like that, you can absolutely do an outgoing type of style of message to where when they send you a message or connect with you, that you include that link, right? Another way you can do it is, again, once you put out a newsletter, it goes out to all of your notifications. So this is an instance where having a lot of connections is really important because it goes out to everybody in a mass alert and people at that time can subscribe to it or not, right? But you can also use it in posts. Hey, subscribe to my newsletter, right? Keep reminding people. You can also use it as a hyperlink on your LinkedIn profile if that's something that's really important to you to grow. So there's a lot of different ways. Don't just think of it as sending an email, because again, top level decision makers probably get 50 to 100 inboxes a day just on LinkedIn. Don't inundate them with too much information, but they would probably love to see a post from you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Question here around hashtags, and I'm old school, so I'm not a pro here at all, but are hashtags important on LinkedIn, and how often should I use in a post each time for it to be effective?
Absolutely. So throw them on there, right? Put them at the bottom or embedded in the text, not a problem. But this is not Instagram. So 50 hashtags per post is way too much. I like 3 to 4, 5 at the max, and put them right at the bottom. It adds to the branding of your post, right? It adds to that, again, leadership level of your post. Does it look really nice? Do you have those things like a hashtag, right? But the hashtags are also searchable. So for example, if I put at the bottom of my post that's on leadership, the hashtag leadership, somebody can click on the hashtag and automatically go to hashtag leadership, where they can see any post that is hashtag leadership. So it's a good thing. You want to add hashtags, but don't make it look spammy by over delivering of the hashtags. Make it intentful and to the point of your subject.
Awesome. Another question here, Melissa. Should we have a strategy as whom we connect to? I get a lot of requests that are random, and I generally connect to others in my industry.
It's your network. So I'm not going to tell you a right or wrong approach. I will say this. I feel like it's a good thing to connect with a lot of different people. And I treat my network like a financial portfolio. So that's the general analogy that I give. Diversity is good. You want lots of diversity because you'd be surprised who other people know, right? So it may not be that person necessarily that can take you to that next level or deal or whatever, but maybe they know someone in their network that's looking for your exact service. They start following you, and all of a sudden they can refer you. So keep an open mind. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your network, but I would say keep an open mind. I don't generally connect with people without a profile picture. But if you seem like, we're like-minded in some kind of way, I generally accept the connections.
Great. Another question here on outreach from Kim. Thanks for the question, Kim. Is it appropriate to ask for a Zoom meeting with someone you're looking to connect with or have just recently connected with?
That could be fine, but you have to frame it in a way where it's not salesy, because otherwise they're going to say no or delete your message. So this is where you have to be creative. But again, the first step, we think of it so much in sales. I've got to send this is hot, hot, hot. I've got to send this person a message. Chill out, let it, sit for a day or so and follow their content. Again, ring the bell on their profile. Start nurturing that relationship. That's what you want. Maybe do that a time or two and comment and like their post, and then send them a DM. Hey, I love your content, because that way you have something to talk about. Wow, your post on leadership last week really got me thinking, and now I'm going to apply that at my job. I would love to have a virtual coffee chat with you sometime. When would you be available for that? It disarms that person. You've given them a compliment, and they've proven that they can count on you because you've liked and supported them, even in a short period of time.
Super smart. What advice do you have about creating a group and how to build your community or attract the right people to this group?
So groups are great. They're more used on, I would say, Facebook than LinkedIn. There's a lot of groups out there on LinkedIn with not a lot of activity. So you can create your own group. That's totally fine. They're easy to create. But again, would anybody sign up for joining your group if you've never reached out to them before? So again, that's where it starts. Always communication first. You have to have that initial, relationship, that initial outreach for somebody to say, oh, great. Otherwise, they're going to say, oh, great, another group, right?
Mhm.
Another group. So you can create these groups and, eventually start inviting people to them. You can also have a post. Hey, I just created this group. It is literally, and then put who your target market is for that group. You have the option of confirming or denying people that enter in. So make it clear, put it in a post, announce it, right? I would say before you start inviting people in a cold outreach, make a post, announce it a little bit, and then you can start inviting folks to the group.
Yeah, sound advice. An industry specific question, but I think it might be helpful for some of the folks on the call because I've got a couple of questions around this one. I hardly see any doctors or nurses or anyone in the medical industry on LinkedIn. Are they there? And if not, where do you think they are?
So just last week, I had a LinkedIn live stream with Dr. Eric Pearson, who is a pediatric surgeon out of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed him because he's a connection of mine and I admire his content. And the topic of our talk was why doctors need a personal brand. And it was so key. So I'm glad you brought that up, because if you think about a profession that needs more trust, I don't know of a profession than a pediatric surgeon. That's why I wanted to interview him, because the importance of LinkedIn, and again, building that personal brand that I talk about, is that trust factor, right? So in order for someone to have trust enough on you as a professional to operate on their child, it's a good thing for you to have a personal brand that showcases, again, your leadership ability, right? That you show up, who you really are as a person, that you really care genuinely about your patients. So yes, doctors, nurses, surgeons, lawyers, all of the above are on LinkedIn. And a lot of them don't use it to its full potential, because think about, again, building that celebrity for yourself as a physician, that client base, that it's just, again, if you do it, you're automatically so far apart because not many people in the industry do it.
Yeah. And then tips on using video in your profile.
Yes. So this is a great question. Utilize it, right? So that video profile, when somebody goes to your profile, they see a profile picture, and from that profile picture on mobile only, you can also upload a mobile video of yourself. Do it. It's a 30-second elevator pitch. That's what you get, 30 seconds. But it's that elevator pitch. Again, it lets people see who you are as a person. And it's, again, that pitch, right? So whatever your pitch is in 30 seconds, how powerful is that for somebody landing on your page? And again, it's enriching that target customer over time. Make it so completely clear in that profile video who you serve, how you help them, and why. And all of a sudden you convert an onlooker to a partner or an investor or a client.
Great advice. Let's see another question here around LinkedIn Insights. Do you know any LinkedIn analytics tools, or is there anything on the free version that you can use right now?
Analytics tools. So I guess I'm not unsure what they're asking, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I think they're looking at least for my guess. And please feel free, anonymous attendee, to fill in my gaps here. But I'm guessing like aggregation of all of the likes, follows, the people who they're liking and following. I think they're looking for like that.
Oh, gotcha. There may be something out there. There may be a software program out there. I don't know of it. Certainly not on the free version. So, hopefully LinkedIn does something like that in the future. I would absolutely love it, because right now there's no way to aggregate that data on the free level.
Yeah. And then an attendee just said analytics are available on company pages. So interesting. So check that out. Let's see, another question here, honest and authentic, and that's sort of what you're touting this entire time. Do you feel insecure or self-conscious in front of your old professional connections when you started posting more deliberately and speaking to a new type of business that you're building?
So that's what you call imposter syndrome, and everybody goes through it at any point in time in their career. So it happens to the best of us, folks. Again, don't worry about what other people's perceptions of you are going to be. You're not going to attract everybody, and that's a good thing. You want to attract the right people. So I wouldn't worry so much and be self-conscious about what other people are going to perceive, especially older connections. They may support you. So don't think of it as worst case scenario either, because again, I used to be in corporate world and I still have all those connections. I had someone just the other day reach out to me and congratulate me on this talk. I didn't even realize they were following me that well, but they reached out to me, they sent me a DM and congratulated me. So where we think in our minds that, we're going to have these hiccups with other people, just put that out of your mind if you can, because again, that's why I said at the beginning of the talk, number one thing is mindset. And again, you have to get that mindset right in order for you to be an entrepreneur, period, but especially to be an entrepreneur that puts themselves out there on LinkedIn, right? So get that mindset right and dismiss the noise and just start putting yourself out there.
That's great advice. And yeah, I mean, hopefully your past professional experiences still like you and support your new venture, but of course, along the way, can't please everyone. Right. Well, Tara, we are at time, but I want to thank you so much on behalf of everyone in attendance for joining us and sharing your wisdom around LinkedIn strategies to grow business. We are just super appreciative. And what is a way for people to get in touch, stay in link with you, maybe on LinkedIn? We're going to drop some links in there in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. So best way to get a hold of me is LinkedIn, Tara-Lafon-Gooch. That's my full URL. And my email, feel free to reach out, tara@bestbranding.solutions.
Amazing. Well, we've got a playbook for our attendees in the audience today too, so check out that link. We appreciate your feedback, but Tara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Great. And those of you still on, we've got some great upcoming webinars. So Anna's going to drop some links for those upcoming classes coming in the next couple months. We hope you can join them, but on behalf of everyone on our team and everyone in attendance, we look forward to seeing you all online soon. Thanks again, Tara.
Thank you.